Hello, and welcome to this space. If you're here looking for a story about finding the strength to rebuild when your entire foundation turns out to be quicksand, please stick with me. I encourage you to hit subscribe. We share inspiring stories of personal transformation here every week. And let me know in the comments where in the world this story is finding you today, because right now, I need to know I'm not alone in this kind of quiet devastation. I wasn't looking for trouble. I was just trying to match socks. That's how mundane it was when my fingers brushed against something stiff and glossy inside the pocket of his freshly laundered dress shirt. The shirt he'd worn to the critical business trip last week. It wasn't cash or a forgotten receipt. It was folded tightly, corner to corner, like someone was trying to hide its specific shape. When I pulled it out, the stark, unsettling black and white image of a tiny, perfectly formed spine and skull hit me like a physical punch, knocking the air right out of my lungs. The paper was an ultrasound printout, dated 3 weeks ago. For a long, agonizing moment, the sound in the laundry room, the hum of the dryer, the thud of the detergent bottle, went silent. The world contracted into the small, warm rectangle of that paper. My first thought, the brain's desperate plea for sanity, was that it had to be a cruel joke, a medical mistake, maybe a discarded image from a colleague's wife. But the name printed clearly on the top right corner, small and cold, was his. Not the mother's name, but his name, listed as the accompanying partner on the hospital form. In the same room where I had just been folding clothes for the man I dedicated my life to, the undeniable proof that he was living a parallel life, a fertile life, was now trembling in my hand. I know now that finding that picture was only the beginning of the earthquake. The immediate shock was paralyzing, but the true cost, the demolition of my history, the incineration of every dream we'd built, brick by agonizing brick, that terrible lesson was only just loading. I still didn't know the price I would truly pay for picking up his laundry that Tuesday morning. To understand the specific, suffocating gravity of that moment, you have to know what those 5 years were for us. My name is Clara, and until that moment, I believed my life was a testament to perseverance. We weren't just a couple. We were a unit forged in the crucible of medical failure. 5 years. 5 years of charting temperatures, timing intimacy, enduring the invasive prods and the constant crushing cycle of hope and despair. Our calendars were marked by fertility clinic appointments. Our mornings started with syringes, and our nights ended with silent tears after yet another negative test. We had spent our savings, mortgaged our future, and endured the emotional exhaustion that only in vitro fertilization, IVF cycles can bring, all driven by the mutual, desperate desire to fill the agonizing silence in our home with a child's laughter. He was always there, holding my hand through the procedures, comforting me when the treatments failed, assuring me, "It's us against the world, Clara. We'll get through this together." That shared struggle wasn't just a backdrop to our marriage, it was our marriage. It was the deep, scarring context that made the tiny, innocent image of a developing life in his pocket not just a betrayal, but an exquisite, targeted cruelty. This was the life we had sacrificed everything for. The life he had, apparently found with someone else, effortlessly, while still convincing me to stick another needle in my thigh. This was my normal, the stable, loving, deeply flawed foundation I trusted completely, right before it was ripped out from under me. Hello, friends. If you are looking for stories about overcoming the impossible and finding strength when the world collapses, you are in the right place. Hit that subscribe button. It fuels us to share these raw, transformative journeys of emotional growth and personal transformation. Tell me, where are you watching this story from? I want to connect with you. And trust me, you need to stay until the very end of this one, because what happened next taught me the darkest lesson about self-preservation. The paper in my hand was feather light, yet it weighed the sum of my entire life. I remember the exact texture of the flimsy thermal paper against my palm as I stood motionless in the hallway, the sun setting outside, turning the living room a sickly shade of orange. I placed the ultrasound photo exactly where I found it, sliding it back into the inner jacket pocket, a silent, damning witness to the crime. My breath was shallow, caught somewhere between my lungs and the scream I couldn't afford to let out. The moment that image settled back into the silk lining, the house stopped being a home. It became a museum of carefully constructed lies, and I was the curator, suddenly seeing the dust and rot beneath the polished veneer. The phone buzzed in my hand. It was Mark. His caller ID flashed against the screen, illuminating a face that was suddenly unrecognizable, a stranger wearing the skin of the man I loved. I let it ring twice before answering, needing those 2 seconds to reconstruct my vocal cords, to find the brittle shell of the wife he expected. "Hey," I managed, the sound thin and far away like a radio station losing signal. He was cheerful, annoyingly, offensively normal. He was stuck in traffic, running late, mentioning the work dinner that I now knew was a flimsy, pathetic curtain concealing a second, secret life. I listened to his fabricated excuses, nodding into the receiver even though he couldn't see me, my heart hammering against my ribs, counting the pulse points of his deception. The injustice wasn't just the cheating, it was the casualness of his performance, his ability to compartmentalize this massive, foundational lie while asking me if I remembered to take my meds. As soon as he hung up, promising to be home soon, the paralysis broke. A chilling, surgical clarity took its place. I wasn't shaking anymore. I was moving with cold purpose. This wasn't about rage yet. It was about evidence. I needed to move beyond the emotional shock and build a case, because deep down, the desperate, pathetic part of me still wanted to find an explanation, a mistake, a bizarre coincidence, anything that wasn't the agonizing truth the photo screamed. I went straight for the laptop, the shared digital hub of our life. I searched his emails first, filtering by keywords that made my fingers tremble. Ultrasound, appointment, baby, delivery. Nothing. He was smarter than that, or perhaps he used a separate burner account. Then I remembered the junk drawer, the graveyard of loose receipts and bank statements we were supposed to shred. Hidden beneath the accumulated detritus of rubber bands and old menus, I found a stack of official-looking mail, previously unopened, shoved deep into the corner. My stomach twisted when I saw the return address, a high-end obstetric clinic, 3 counties away, not the impersonal mail of a bank. The first letter I pulled out wasn't addressed to Mark, but to Mr. and Mrs. M. Davies, a small detail that clawed at my throat. It was a confirmation for an intake appointment scheduled 6 weeks prior, a date I remembered acutely, because it was the day I had called him in tears from the fertility clinic, devastated that the latest round of retrieval had failed. While I was grieving the loss of a possibility, he was finalizing plans for his new reality. But the most corrosive detail was the enclosed financial statement, an itemized bill for prenatal services that totaled more than we had spent on 3 rounds of IVF combined. This was not a one-night mistake. This was a calculated, financially backed commitment to build a family unit that deliberately excluded me. I moved to the file cabinet next, the one that held our joint tax, returns, and insurance policies. The papers felt heavy and ancient, documents from a marriage that was now officially dead. I found the supplemental health insurance policy he had insisted we take out for emergencies 6 months ago. The premium was astronomical, but the fine print revealed the truth. It specifically included comprehensive maternity coverage and full delivery fees, listing a secondary dependent's name. It wasn't Mark or Mrs. Davies. It was Lara P. The name meant nothing to me, yet it was the most real thing in the room. Lara P. The financial timeline was sickeningly precise. The policy was activated the month after he must have known he had successfully impregnated this woman. He hadn't just betrayed me emotionally. He had actively restructured our financial future to fund his parallel life, all while encouraging me to spend thousands more on a futile fertility journey, sticking needles into my skin, giving him cover for his nights away. The floor beneath me seemed to tilt. The physical proof was overwhelming, far beyond the initial, isolated cruelty of the photo. I was standing in the ruins of my life, holding the blueprints of his next one. He wasn't just cheating. He was replacing me entirely, meticulously dismantling our shared existence piece by piece. The realization hit with the force of an actual impact. This wasn't a secret he planned to keep. This was the slow, painful execution of our marriage. He had let me hope, let me suffer, let me pour my body and soul into chasing a dream he had already caught with someone else. The sound of his key in the front door lock was the loudest sound I had ever heard. The brief window of cold, calculated action was over. It was time for the confrontation. I didn't hide the papers. I didn't hide the evidence. I laid the insurance policy, the clinic bill, and the tiny, innocent ultrasound picture side by side on the pristine white kitchen counter, arranging them like exhibits in a court case. I knew then that whatever came next would be irreversible. The man walking through that door was about to meet the woman he had created through his lies, someone utterly devoid of the naive trust she held just hours ago. She was cold, she was ready, and she was done. If this story has resonated with you, if you've ever felt that gut-wrenching moment of realization, tell me in the comments what gave you the strength to stand up. And please, hit that like button and stay tuned for the next part of this story, because the confrontation was far worse than the discovery. Hello friends, and welcome back to the channel. If you're just tuning in, you've arrived at the precise moment my life fractured, the second the confrontation began. To everyone watching, whether you're joining us from Europe, from Asia, or right here in the Americas, please let me know in the comments where this story is finding you and impacting your heart. Your support helps more than you know. And if you are seeking strength, if you need stories about finding your inner power and transforming your perspective, hit that subscribe button right now. I promise you want to stick around for the end of this one. The key turned in the lock. The sound was horribly, offensively ordinary, jarring against the seismic shift that had occurred inside my chest over the last few hours. He walked into the living room, tossing his leather jacket carelessly over the back of the armchair, the picture of casual normalcy that now felt like a grotesque, sickening costume. He paused mid-stride, the easy, practiced smile he always reserved for coming home freezing solid on his face. He didn't even have to see the evidence laid out on the coffee table. He saw the way I held myself, rigid, utterly unreadable, and the color drained instantly from his face. The air became thick, weighted down by every single unspoken lie that now hung between us, heavy and toxic. "Hey," he started, his voice a casual query, but the pitch was just a breath too high, betraying the tremor underneath. I didn't return the greeting. I didn't move. I simply slid the crumpled, damning receipt across the polished mahogany table, watching it catch the light. It was the restaurant bill, dated last Tuesday, detailing 2 expensive dinners, a specific vintage bottle of wine he claimed was sold out, and the hefty deposit for future special arrangements, all signed with a flourish under the assumed name of the Martins. He picked it up, with a slow, agonizingly deliberate movement, his fingers visibly trembling. The first genuine sign of physical fear I had ever witnessed in the strong, controlled man I thought I knew. He looked at the receipt, then back at me, his gaze trying desperately to regain the upper hand. "What is this, Sarah?" he asked, trying to sound annoyed, bored even, but failing spectacularly. "It's just a receipt. I took a client out. You know how important that account is." The simplicity of the lie was the most insulting, the most damaging part of the whole charade. It wasn't the discovery that broke me. It was his immediate, pathetic dismissal of the proof. A client named Isabella, with a signature on the deposit slip that looks exactly like your mother's handwriting, only slightly altered. And the reservation notes, conveniently erased from your calendar, which specifically requested the private booth for an anniversary? I asked, my voice flat, devoid of heat. I was not screaming, and that terrified him more than any histrionics ever could. He knew I had crossed the invisible final line from suspicious wife to meticulous cold detective. His jaw tightened, a muscle jumping violently in his cheek. The silence that followed was absolute, suffocating us both as the weight of the undeniable truth settled. He dropped the receipt. That small, dismissive action was his silent move to deny the physical evidence, a final attempt to sweep it under the rug. That's when I produced the second piece. It wasn't a paper trail, it was a photograph. A screenshot from an anonymous burner account sent earlier that day, showing him laughing, intimately close, with a woman whose manicured hand rested possessively on his knee. A woman I vaguely recognized as someone from his extended professional circle. Someone I had dismissed as utterly harmless. "Don't insult my intelligence further," I whispered, the sound barely audible, yet slicing through the tension like glass. "I know this isn't a client dinner, and judging by the background and the sheer audacity of this public display, this wasn't even the first time. The truth now, every single ugly detail, or this conversation ends, and the lawyers begin tomorrow morning." His mask finally shattered. It didn't crumble slowly. It shattered instantly, replaced by raw, ugly anger. He didn't apologize. He didn't plead. He didn't even try to lie about the photograph. He lashed out, his immediate instinct not to repair our bond, but to protect his image, his carefully constructed facade. "You broke into my life. You went digging. Are you seriously going to ruin everything we built because you went snooping like some paranoid idiot?" he shouted, finally injecting volume into the room, his eyes blazing with fury that wasn't directed at the woman he was seeing, but squarely at me for catching him. This was the true, irreversible plot twist. He wasn't upset about the betrayal. He was furious about being caught. The man I loved was gone, replaced by a defensive, entitled stranger who saw me not as a partner, but as a roadblock to his carefully constructed double life. He was willing to sacrifice everything, just to avoid admitting his weakness. I realized then that the fight wasn't about the affair anymore. It was about my right to exist outside his control. My strength wasn't in the evidence. It was in the silence I found after his outburst, the absolute clarity that this man was a phantom I had mistakenly anchored my entire existence to. If this story has resonated with you, if you've ever found yourself facing down a betrayal where the person blamed you for finding the truth, tell me in the comments what gave you the strength to hold your ground. We are just getting started on this journey of self-reclamation. Please, hit that like button, subscribe for more stories of personal growth, and click on the next video now, because you won't believe how far he was willing to go to keep the lie alive. Welcome back, warriors. If you're joining me now, please take a moment to hit that subscribe button. We are digging deep into stories of personal growth, transformation, and finding light after the darkest betrayals. I want to know where you are watching from and what gives you the strength to keep showing up for yourself every day. Drop your city and your mantra in the comments below. Last time, we left off standing in the wreckage of a truth he desperately tried to bury. He didn't apologize for the lie. He condemned me for being smart enough to find it. And in the days that followed that shattering discovery, our house didn't become a war zone. It became a tomb. The silence was the weapon. It was thick, suffocating, and far more painful than any shouting match could have been. He moved through the rooms like a ghost, his presence a constant vibrating insult. I realized quickly that the end of the argument was not the end of the gaslighting. By refusing to speak, he was forcing me to live in a reality where the betrayal hadn't happened, where I was the hysterical one who had ruined the peace. I walked on eggshells made of shattered trust, waiting for the inevitable explosion that never came. He was waiting me out, assuming my need for comfort or resolution would make me back down and settle for his version of events. A momentary lapse, a temporary madness. But something shifts when you know the map of the deception. You start seeing the fault lines everywhere. I wasn't looking for proof anymore. I was looking for the edges of the cage he had built around me. One Tuesday morning, while finally tackling the chaotic mess of the catch-all drawer in the study, the one he always insisted on organizing himself, my hand brushed against something heavy tucked inside a stack of old warranty papers. It wasn't an envelope. It was a sealed padded sleeve, like one you'd use for confidential documents. My heart didn't just beat, it hammered against my ribs, demanding release. My hands shook so violently I had to brace myself against the desk just to slit the seal. Inside, there wasn't a love letter or a photo. That would have been too simple, too human. Instead, I pulled out a set of meticulously organized documents labeled with cryptic acronyms and dates that reached back almost 3 years. The first page was a bank statement from an offshore account, one I had never seen, never signed on to, and never heard mentioned. It wasn't a joint account, it was solely in his name. That was the first gut punch. The second, far heavier blow, was the transaction history. The account wasn't new. It had been receiving steady, substantial deposits, small enough to blend into the corporate landscape, but large, enough to signify a massive hidden nest egg. I sank onto the floor. The papers fanned out around me like deadly playing cards. This wasn't just infidelity. This was a calculated, long-term financial escape plan. He hadn't just slipped and fallen into an affair. He had systematically been funding his future without me, draining resources from our shared life, planning his perfect, clean exit while I was still planning our next anniversary trip. The dates were the true executioner. The account was opened 6 months before we bought our dream house. The house he insisted we put entirely in both our names as a sign of his unwavering commitment. He had stood in that notary office, holding my hand, swearing eternal partnership, while knowing he had already laid the financial groundwork for his solo life. The realization was suffocating. The man I had married wasn't merely flawed. He was a meticulous architect of deception. Every loving gesture, every shared budget meeting, every conversation about our future had been a lie layered upon a lie. I picked up the last document in the sleeve, a printout of a deed transfer for a small condo, registered in a neighboring state, purchased 2 years prior, paid in full. The date of purchase aligned exactly with the time I was recovering from major surgery, when he was bringing me soup and reading me books, claiming he cherished every moment of being my caregiver. I looked at the silence of the room, the same silence that had been torturing me, and understood its true meaning. He wasn't silent out of grief or shame. He was silent because he was waiting for the perfect moment to execute the final stage of his grand plan. He didn't want to leave me. He wanted to erase me, leaving me with nothing but the shared debt and the empty shell of a life we had built. The house had become a cage, and the documents were the blueprint showing exactly how long he had been building it. If you have ever had that horrifying moment where the truth wasn't just painful, but actively malicious, where you realized your whole history was fabricated, please hit that like button. We're moving into the darkest part of this story now. The moment I decided I would not be collateral damage in his escape. You won't believe what I did next to ensure I reclaimed not just my freedom, but my future. Click the next video now. Welcome back, friends. If you're just tuning in, grab a coffee, because the temperature in this story just dropped below freezing. We left off with me holding those blueprints, the cold, hard map to his betrayal. If you believe in finding strength in the face of impossible odds, hit that subscribe button right now. We share stories of radical self-rescue and transformation here every week. Tell me in the comments, where are you watching from? I need to know we're building this community of resilience together. And trust me, you need to stick around until the very last second of this video, because what I did next changed the entire game. The shock of the blueprints didn't last long, replaced immediately by a terrifying Arctic clarity. I realized I was living with a ghost, a professional actor playing the role of my devoted partner, and I could not afford to drop the mask either. Confrontation was suicide. He would shred the evidence and frame me as hysterical before I could even dial a lawyer. My silence became my greatest weapon. For 3 weeks, I perfected the performance of the oblivious, loving wife. I cooked his favorite meals. I listened patiently to his manufactured stress about client deadlines, and I even initiated intimacy, just to watch him squirm slightly under the weight of his calculated deception. Every kiss was a lie I pressed against his mouth, tasting the metallic tang of planning and deceit. The blueprints were the skeletal structure, but I needed the flesh and blood of the conspiracy. The location listed was vague, a lot number in the outer suburbs of Savannah, purchased under an LLC with a name so generic it might as well have been Shady Business Inc. I knew he kept his real finances and travel logs on a separate, heavily encrypted work laptop, the one he practically slept with. Getting past that was impossible physically, but technologically, I had a desperate chance. I spent 2 sleepless nights researching, sinking deep into the dark corners of the internet for a keylogger software sophisticated enough to bypass corporate firewalls. The moment I managed to slip the tiny flash drive into his machine while he was in the shower felt like a scene from a spy movie, except the stakes were not national security, but the demolition of my personal reality. The software installed perfectly, running invisibly in the background, mirroring every keystroke and intercepting every email sent or received. The waiting was agonizing. It was like standing on a fault line, knowing the tremor was coming, but not knowing if it would be a minor shake or the complete collapse of the city. The first trickle of information arrived late one Tuesday night, disguised in a massive, obfuscated data dump. I sifted through hundreds of lines of code and financial jargon until I found the email chain. It wasn't about construction logistics. It was about the money. He wasn't just building something. He was actively liquidating our joint investment portfolio. The fund we had, painstakingly built over a decade, specifically earmarked for our future retirement. He was bleeding us dry, systematically transferring substantial chunks into the same LLC that owned the Savannah lot. It wasn't a casual betrayal. It was financial premeditation, grand theft disguised as a marriage. But the real gut-punching revelation came 2 days later. Among the construction expense sheets, I found a specific line item labeled Interior, Design Fixtures, Master Suite and Library Skylight. That skylight. It was the ridiculous, specific detail we had joked about for years. That perfect spot where the afternoon sun would hit the oversized leather armchair in the library of our hypothetical dream home. He wasn't just leaving, he was stealing the blueprint of our shared fantasy and rebuilding it with someone else. My hands were shaking violently as I scrolled down the spreadsheet. Further, past the marble costs and the custom cabinetry prices. The very last line item, the one that stopped my heart cold and confirmed the true monstrous scale of his exit strategy, was simple, cruel, and undeniable. Nursery furnishings, twin set. Twins. It wasn't just a matter of him trading me in for a younger model or a fresh start. He was preparing to start a ready-made family in the house he stole from our future, using the money we might since earned together, mimicking the dreams we forged. The silence in our apartment after that discovery wasn't peaceful. It was the sound of a bomb ticking, and I knew exactly when it was set to detonate. The game had officially changed from survival to tactical warfare. and the time for acting nice was over. I had to secure not just my escape, but absolute, irrevocable leverage. I needed evidence that would not only expose him, but utterly destroy the curated image he presented to the world. You have to understand that when someone tries to erase you completely, you have the right, no, the obligation, to fight back with everything you have. If hearing about this kind of betrayal makes your blood run cold, please show your support by hitting the like button. This isn't just my story. It's a testament to the strength we find when our backs are against the wall. The next phase of this story involves me making a choice I never thought I was capable of. And trust me, you won't want to miss how I finally turned the tables. Click here for the next video, where I reveal the shocking extent of my counterplan and the moment I finally confronted him with the truth. Welcome back, family. If you're here, you know the gravity of what happened last time. We left off standing on the edge of the abyss, and now we're about to jump. Before we plunge into the heart of the confrontation, the moment I finally fought back, I want to extend a massive thank you. If you are new here, please hit that subscribe button right now. We are building a community of resilience, sharing stories of personal growth, emotional transformation, and finding the unwavering strength buried deep inside us. Tell me in the comments, where in the world are you watching from? Knowing my story resonates globally gives me the strength to share this next terrifying chapter. Stick with me until the very end. This is where the real turning point happens. The air in our house had become toxic, thick and heavy, like breathing underwater. We were two ships passing in the night, moored to the same dock, but sailing in entirely different realities. The forced silence was worse than any screaming match we could have had. Every mundane task, making coffee, locking the door, switching off the lights, was a silent declaration of war. He knew I knew, yet he maintained a facade of weary innocence, occasionally sighing dramatically, waiting for me to break and apologize for the suspicion he claimed was baseless. But I was done breaking. My heart had been reduced to ash, and from that ash, something cold and sharp was growing. Strategy. I had spent 2 weeks meticulously mapping out his movements, his passwords, his habits. It was a bizarre clinical process, like performing surgery on my own life. I realized that the person I thought I knew was nothing more than an elaborate security system designed to protect a secret life, and I needed to find the back door. I started with his old desktop computer, tucked away in the dusty guest room closet, a machine he rarely touched but which held years of digital residue. I knew the physical evidence I had collected, the texts, the receipts, were damning, but they weren't final. They were proof of infidelity. I needed proof of calculated abandonment. It was 2:30 a.m. when I finally managed to bypass the security settings on the ancient device. The fan whirred to life, sounding like a dying animal in the oppressive quiet. My hands were shaking, not from fear, but from a focused, terrifying clarity. I wasn't just looking for clues anymore. I was looking for the execution date of my erasure. I navigated through files until I found a folder named innocuously, Tax Documents 2024. My gut clenched. He was obsessive about backing up financial details. Deep inside that folder, hidden beneath spreadsheets detailing our joint investments, was a compressed, password-protected file labeled Blueprint. My breath hitched. Blueprint. Not project, not future, but blueprint, a structural plan. It took 3 tries, using a combination of his mother's birth date and our former dog's name, but the file finally opened. The contents hit me with the force of a physical blow, knocking the wind out of my lungs. It wasn't just bank statements. It was a comprehensive exit strategy. There were detailed drafts of a property deed for a small condo on the other side of the city, a condo purchased outright, in her name, finalized last month. They had been planning their physical move while I was still planning our next vacation. The betrayal deepened, metastasizing into something monstrous. But then I scrolled further. The file didn't stop at real estate. There was a section dedicated entirely to dissolving our shared assets, meticulously outlining how he intended to minimize my share through legal maneuvering and obfuscation of value. It was a financial ambush. He hadn't just been cheating. He had been constructing a cage around me, preparing to leave me financially crippled while he walked away clean. The ultimate insult was the last document in the folder, a draft of a prenuptial agreement, not for us, but for them. A legal document sketching out his financial terms for a future marriage, complete with clauses about protecting his existing assets we had built together. That was the point of no return. Seeing that draft of their future contract, while I was sitting alone in the dark ruins of our shared past, snapped the last thread of hope and denial. This wasn't a mistake, a moment of weakness, or a midlife crisis. This was cold, calculated, premeditated destruction. He saw me not as his partner, but as an obstacle to be liquidated. The tears didn't come. They had been replaced by a freezing resolve. I didn't feel rage. I felt the terrifying calm of a person who has finally understood the stakes. I carefully copied every single file, the deed, the financial projections, the prenuptial draft, onto a discrete external drive. I didn't delete the original files. I wanted him to think his secret was still safe, still buried. As the status bar ticked toward completion, filling the drive with his meticulously planned treachery, I realized I was no longer grieving. I was loading the weapon. The confrontation wouldn't be about shouting or crying. It would be about facts, figures, and the undeniable paper trail he had foolishly left behind. I closed the laptop, my reflection staring back at me from the screen. A stranger with eyes that had seen too much, but who was now absolutely, dangerously ready. The time for pain was over. The time for justice had begun. If you have ever faced a betrayal so profound that it forced you to redefine your own strength, please give this video a like and share your thoughts below. It is in these moments of true darkness that we find the light to fight. Join me in the next chapter, where I execute my counterplan and finally confront him with the irrefutable evidence. The final showdown is closer than you think. Warriors, welcome back. If you're just tuning in, you've arrived at the moment of impact. This chapter isn't about crying anymore. It's about claiming back the ground they stole. Please, take a second right now to hit that subscribe button. We are building a community dedicated to real inner strength, the kind forged in fire. And tell me, where in the world are you watching from today? Let me know in the comments. I need to know how far this message of inner strength is traveling. Stick with me until the very last word, because the closure I found is something I hope every one of you can claim for yourselves. The air in the restaurant was thick, not with reconciliation, but with a tension so sharp it could cut glass. He thought this was a victory lap for him, a chance to pull me back into his orbit of denial. He smiled, that same predatory smile, asking about my attempts to move on, trying to pull me back into the illusion of normalcy. He hadn't noticed the small, silent recorder placed discreetly under the linen napkin, nor had he noticed the 3 other people scattered strategically around the room, people he thought were neutral observers, but who were actually witnesses waiting for my signal. I didn't need to be loud. I needed to be surgically precise. I waited until he mentioned the family legacy, the very thing he had been systematically dismantling behind my back for years. That was my cue. Legacy, I repeated, my voice steady, feeling the cold weight of the evidence in my hand. That's an interesting word for what you did to Dad's company, isn't it? His face didn't fall immediately. It hardened into confusion, then annoyance. What are you talking about? Are we going to start this drama again? I thought we were moving forward. I ignored the familiar tactic of dismissal. I slid the first envelope across the table. It wasn't a bank statement. It was the sworn, notarized affidavit from the accountant he'd fired, the one he thought he'd silenced forever. It detailed the shell companies, the deliberate sabotage of inventory, and the millions siphoned off into offshore accounts over the past 7 years. He grabbed it, his fingers crushing the expensive paper, reading the names and dates that confirmed every fear I'd buried. The denial was explosive, instantaneous. "This is garbage, a forgery. You're sick trying to destroy me," he hissed, his eyes darting frantically around the room, searching for an escape route that didn't exist. I leaned forward, my gaze unwavering. "That affidavit is backed by the security camera footage from the warehouse," I continued, my voice measured, "proving you met with the rival CEO hours before the fire that destroyed the remaining assets. You called it an unfortunate accident. The police called it insurance fraud. I call it treason." The room went silent. The observers, my mother, my aunt, and a distant cousin who was also a trusted lawyer, looked on, their faces pale, finally understanding the depth of the rot. He lunged across the table, his composure finally shattering, but he was too late. I hit play on the digital recorder hidden under the napkin. His voice, chillingly clear and cold, filled the space, detailing the final steps of his scheme to permanently bankrupt the family trust. Recorded just minutes before I arrived. He realized his fatal mistake. He had been speaking carelessly into a trap he hadn't seen coming. The noise he made wasn't human, a guttural blend of rage, denial, and absolute paralyzing terror. He wasn't afraid of me. He was afraid of the consequences that were already in motion. The second envelope contained the signed documents detailing the legal transfer of control back to the legitimate family trust, initiated 2 days prior, based entirely on the irrefutable proof I had gathered. The evidence wasn't just proof of his crimes. It was the final, inescapable gavel of justice. I stood up, leaving the resulting chaos behind me. I didn't need a final word, a dramatic exit speech. The truth, in the form of cold, hard facts and legal documents, spoke for itself. My justice wasn't revenge. It was the surgical removal of a cancer that threatened to consume my entire life. I walked out of that restaurant and into the bright sunlight, leaving the wreckage of his lies scattered behind him, feeling the lightness of pure freedom for the first time in years. The silence that followed was deafening, a quiet space where fear used to reside. I spent so long trying to understand why he did it, searching for the logic in the madness of betrayal, trying to force the narrative of family loyalty onto someone incapable of it. But I realized logic wasn't the answer. The only truth that mattered was this: the blood we share does not guarantee loyalty. It doesn't promise goodness. My biggest mistake was believing that family ties were unbreakable shields. They are not. They are often the weakest point, the space where we allow toxicity to thrive because we confuse obligation with unconditional love. I learned that true strength isn't found in endlessly enduring pain, but in choosing the moment to stand up and say, "No more." My perspective shifted entirely. My family is now defined not by shared DNA, but by shared values, integrity, honesty, and mutual respect. I had to dismantle the old life to build a new foundation, one that could finally support me without crumbling under external pressure. This transformation wasn't easy. It cost me sleepless nights and oceans of tears, but it gave me back myself. If this story resonated with you, if you have ever felt the sharp sting of a betrayal so deep it changed the color of your world, you know exactly what that pain feels like. You know the strength it takes to pick up the pieces and fight for your own truth. Don't let this journey end here. If you found power in this story, please show your support by hitting the like button and sharing this video. Your engagement helps these messages of resilience reach others who desperately need to hear them. And if you want to dive deeper into the essential process of emotional recovery and see how I rebuilt my life after this wreckage, click the video linked on your screen right now. That story about finding peace when everything is burning down around you is even more transformative than this one. Thank you for walking this path of truth and strength with me. Until next time, stay strong, stay true.